Welcome to today's lesson on expressions in word problems. Today we're going to be discussing how to write an expression using information that you find from a word problem. Let's go ahead and begin by discussing what an expression is. So we're going to start by writing an equation in the middle of the screen. Now, an equation is a set of numbers that has an equal sign with numbers on either side. An expression is part of an equation. An expression is a grouping of numbers that have multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, any type of operation that is linking them together. So let's go over that one more time. An equation is the entire group of numbers on either side of the equal sign. The expression is the grouped numbers that have an operation symbol with them. Let's begin today's lesson by looking at a word problem together. Sam sees 3 ants on the sidewalk. Twice as many ants join the group. Write an expression for this word problem. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to underline information that I think is important in this problem. So Sam sees 3 ants on the sidewalk. I've underlined 3 because that's our starting number. We have 3 to begin with, so we're going to need to write that in our expression. I'm also going to write twice as many. I'm going to underline that because that means we're going to need to show multiplication, multiplying a number by 2 to show that we have twice as many ants in our expression. And then I'm going to underline join, because if we're joining groups, then that means that we're going to be adding. We're going to be adding the first group to the second group. So now that we've underlined important information, I want to go ahead and start writing our expression. We know that Sam sees 3 ants on the sidewalk. We have our 3 ants right here, so I'm going to write that as the first part of our expression. Twice as many ants join the group. So if we started with 3 and we have twice as many, we're going to say we have 3 times 2, because that means we're going to have twice as many as 3. And they join the group, so we're going to put our addition symbol right here. We're joining our first group to our second group. We're actually not quite done though, because with order of operations, we want to make sure that these two numbers stay together. So I'm going to put parentheses around the 3 times the 2. Since twice as many ants, we're representing it by multiplying by 2, we want to keep these numbers together. And we have now written an expression for this word problem. Notice that we did not solve the problem and write it in an equation, because our instructions said write an expression, not solve the equation. Sometimes you'll see a word problem that asks you to write an algebraic expression using a variable for your unknown number. A variable is when you use a letter instead of that number. So you might use A or X or Y instead of using the actual number. So let me show you how you would do this. We have 2 times a number plus 4. So we're going to write the number 2. And we know that we're multiplying it by a number. Now we don't know what this number is, so we're going to use the variable A. And since we're multiplying, when you're working with a variable, you can actually multiply just by putting the letter right next to that number, and that means multiplication. And it says that we're going to add next, so I'm going to put the plus symbol right there. And then lastly, it says that we're going to add the number 4. So using the information above, I was able to write an expression for this word problem. 2 times a number plus 4. That's how I would say it in a word sentence, and as an expression, 2 times A plus 4. Here's your chance to get in some practice. What you're going to do is write an algebraic expression that describes the following word phrase using the letter A for the unknown number. Now would be a great time to pause your video so you can work through these problems and then check your work. Alright, let's go over them. A number squared minus 14. So we know that a number is going to be represented by the letter or variable A. And since we're going to be squaring this number, that means that we're going to use an exponent. So I'm going to put our squared symbol at the top. Minus, that means that we need to use subtraction for our next step in this variable. And lastly, we have the number 14. So we have now written an expression using this word sentence to be able to say a squared minus 14. Are you ready for the next one? Okay, so we have the number 3 to start. So I'm going to write the number 3. And we are going to multiply it by a number. And once again, a number is unknown, so we're going to use the variable a. And then it tells us that we need to subtract. So we're going to put a subtraction symbol here. And then finally, we are going to finish with the number 8. And that's all there is to it. All you have to do is go through each of the different words in your word sentence and then change those into numbers. And you have your expression. Let's go ahead and review what you've learned in today's lesson. First, you learned what an expression was. An expression is a grouping of numbers in an equation. Next, you learned how to identify key words in a word problem to be able to write an expression. And lastly, you learned how to use a variable to write a number sentence or part of an expression. So let's walk through one last problem together. We have a number, and it's an unknown number, so we're going to use the variable a. We know that we are squaring the number, so I'm going to write an exponent of 2. We know that we are subtracting, so I'm going to put a subtraction symbol here. And finally, to finish off our expression, we have the number 20. And there you go. You now know how to use a word sentence to write an expression.